I feel like Nightmare was probably like one of those ones they were really ambitious with like different subtext, like taking on different cultures. So like Dream Child was probably about abortion. You had the 2 was about the subtext like being gay. So there's probably more to it than what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddy's Dead is just fucking trash.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Jeff and Collin in the Morning, where we are your hosts, Collin Peters
and Jeff Manfred.
Jeff, we're going to do some reminiscing again today.
I know. It's been like a nice theme we've been doing lately, and we've talked about a lot so far.
We talked about a lot of different topics on this show in particular, while, like John can't join us on Film Asylum. But this has like been really cool because Jeff and I are like huge comic book fans, and we grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, Jeff was born in 86, I was born in 87. Yeah, do the math, we're old. But I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
Because we had really good shit in our childhood, and like a lot of people, we got the original stuff. But this wasn't totally original, but I'm glad we were able to catch it when we did, because without it, we wouldn't have gotten this, not really necessarily witness because we were still too young, but we still got a taste of the phenomenon of Tim Burton's Batman 89, and a lot of it is a result of the 1966 television series Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward.
Dude, I remember a lot of this the first time watching through. It was always Adam West's outfit that always stood out to me. And it was the mask, because you could tell that was like 2 parts that kind of went over it.
I remember the outfit and the costumes in general as well, and the vibrant colors, and just like the fun the show had. I also, the gadgets I remember the most too, because it was, that movie was, or show, there was a movie to it, but it was straight up out of the comic book pages. Some people always say, oh, it ruined the comic book, and I heard a lot of like Batman enthusiasts, even then before social media, were big Batman fans, and even when the show came out, weren't really too crazy about it. But in the 60s, it was like dark really wasn't the thing,
Even I would say the comic books at the time were really bright.
Well, at that time, they were also changing things up because there was a psychologist or psychiatrist. His name was, is it Frederick Wortham? I know Dr. Wortham was the name. The last name was Wortham. And he did some sort of study where he said comic books were making health in kids really bad. So they came up with this stamp that changed some shit on comic books, and they said they got to make them more vibrant, more kid-friendly. And I think he also had like some silly studies where kids were inside more reading them, so they weren't getting fresh air. It was getting to an extreme. Like, I remember Stan Lee even said like 90% of those kids that he tested also drank milk too, but that didn't matter. So it was a little bit of a ridiculous thing. And let's face it, you could have, if fresh air was an issue, you could have taken a comic book outside, and it wasn't like a comic book was a chapter book or something. So it was a little silly, but I could see some PR bullshit with like the violence or the out there shit. But actually, it was that stuff was the reason why they got a little more cosmic and more vibrant, more jokey and things like that. And before the TV show, there were these Batman movie serials that came out. I believe it was in the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
I don't really remember, because Batman came out in the comics in 1939 originally. So these movie serials had to have been closer to that era, especially because of the 60s being like really the big push for Batman and TV medium pop culture. And supposedly, as the story goes, I've heard 2 different stories, and I forget what the other one was, but the big pitch, apparently, for getting the 60s show was there were ABC executives at the Playboy Manor, or mansion, whatever you want to call it, in Chicago, and Hugh Hefner was playing the old serials there.
Oh, wow.
And they saw it and said, this might make for something interesting, TV show or movie. I don't know what exactly was said. And there was a famous TV producer named William Dozier that was contacted, and they said, what do you think you can make of it? And he checked out the comic books and even made a joke because he was on a plane and somebody saw him reading all these Batman comic books and said, oh, scripts are getting that bad, huh?
Oh, wow.
And as he was reading it, he was like, this is so juvenile. It was really violent and out there. And he said, well, his idea was make it entertaining for kids and let's make it funny for adults so that way we get both demographics. So if we overdo the violence and stuff, it might be appealing to the kids, and the adults will get the humor, and that was kind of like the main nucleus, if you will, of forming Batman.
Okay.
And this show is definitely a sign of the times. And also, it goes above and beyond what they had at that time. Like they talked about nuclear power, computers in your home, like all these gadgets and things that Batman had was basically like what modern day military people have either today or they're working on now. And people didn't realize it at the time.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that they had, like you said, was ahead of their time. I mean, come on, the using your watch or your armband to talk to somebody, I'm sitting there going, well, is that really true? But I'm like looking now, my Apple Watch, I can make a fucking phone call on.
And they added their own little things to it, like the Bat phone.
Listen, I want one of those.
I remember as a kid playing that. Wherever you saw a red phone, it was always, oh, the Bat phone.
Exactly.
I think I even remember some adults saying, if you go up to that, Batman will call you. And I was like, oh, wow. And this show is actually my first introduction of Batman, actually. I remember the reruns on TV. I don't remember what channel specifically it was, but I remember my dad and my grandparents saying about how he watched it as a kid and they watched it with my dad. And I just remember the colors and everything about that show was just so unique that it grabs your attention just from the aesthetics alone.
Oh, yeah.
And you really appreciate Adam West's performance as Batman the older you get. Like, he was like such a role model as that character, and they said that he was so like he coveted that part because kids would come on set, he'd put them on their knees, and to Adam West's credit, he like behaved in the public eye.
That's actually really cool.
And there were really cool stories. Like, not only was he cool with the kids, but I think there was a story about how they allowed him to take the Batmobile out.
Dude, I'm a little jealous, yeah.
Off the set, and it was Halloween, so he would actually drive around like a local neighborhood, and I don't know if he was in the costume either, but he would drive around knocking on doors going trick or treat, and he said, yeah, it lasted like 3 houses. So he even had some fun with it, which was so cool to hear. Like, and he had some like badass lines without being badass. Like, I remember he knocked the lights out in one episode, and the bad guys were like, I can't see anything. And then he would light a match, and he goes, can I get that for you?
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember somebody, I think it was like the Riddler, sent a henchman into Commissioner Gordon's office in a Batman outfit, and Bruce Wayne was there. And they say, Bruce Wayne, this is Batman. And he's like, hi, Batman, how you doing? And you hear this from him, and you see the fake Batman like, ow. But people don't realize that. They just think the pow, zap, and wham, and like it was all goofy, funny. But no, there were some pretty badass moments that were not so in your face like 80s testosterone or what we know now. But it was just that like cool badass, I guess is the way to say it.
I mean, have you actually checked out the original comic, like the first appearance of Bruce Wayne and Batman?
I have, but it's been years.
Well, all I remember is the way he looked and the way he acted actually was what Adam West portrayed really well. And that was the thing that blew my mind, because I read it digitally because obvious reasons you can't get a hold of it. But when I was looking at the pictures, I'm like, now I understand why they chose Adam West. And like the hair, everything, he looked exactly how he did in the comics. And I'm like, that was what blew my mind. Because they did so well. Like you said, the execs were reading it, so they found the right person for the right job.
Yeah, they did. And they said they had a couple different casting choices. I know one was a guy named Lyle Wagner, and he did a screen test with another actor named Peter Dial, I think. And they did the Batman and Robin combo, and they said that Lyle Wagner had the more, like a sturdier build to him, more muscular kind of physique, but he didn't nail the charm and the comedy chops. Because what they also say is, and I heard Frank Gorshin, who plays the Riddler, say that nobody gives Adam West credit for being as good as he is as that character, because the pitch was the actor had to play Alice in Wonderland as if he were doing Hamlet. So you got to have this comedy chops yet with this seriousness. And they said Adam West just nailed this, like, kind of square, like upstanding citizen with like a little comedy twist, but gung-ho, mission accomplished, nothing's gonna stop me kind of attitude. And he did some Nestle Quick commercial where it was this like James Bond kind of goofiness, and I think that was what really won him over. I mean, not only did he have the look and did he have a build himself, but it's the performance, and the performance is always going to stand out. And I mean, to this day, I think he did a terrific job. I think he was a fantastic role model of a Batman. Like he also talked about things like drinking milk, how important it was to do your studies, because he utilized that stuff. Like there was an episode where he had to drink, like I think 3 glasses of milk, and it was because King Tut was going to poison him, but the milk coated his stomach.
Oh, wow.
And then he talked about geometry would like help him find things in the map in the Batcave. In the Batcave, what a set that was at that time.
Dude, that was so elaborate that we always laugh about everything was labeled, but it made sense. And it just like looking at the reactor in the middle of the room, and then kind of everything building out around it. You have the car parked there that actually spun around by itself.
It was super elaborate. I mean, that set was so damn cool. Like I remember seeing the little toy models of it, and I just thought, man, that'd be so cool to have.
I know. I'm kind of thinking about it now, but I'm like, don't need any.
I know. It's like I want it, but no, I can't.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have one of those big, long, wide shot panoramic images of it and just put it up on the wall and just be like, yeah, the Batcave.
I know, dude.
That would be worth it.
But recently, I actually started showing Thea the show because she came home from daycare one day actually with a Batman toy, and I had no clue where it came from. But she
doesn't matter. It's Batman.
Yeah, I was like, cool, but she got it for actually doing good at school. So, but I introduced her to Batman through Scooby-Doo, and then I was like, there's a show that you might like. And I explained it's like really colorful, but it's Batman. We're halfway through the first season, and she absolutely loves it. She actually gets upset when Adam West, Bruce Wayne, Batman get in trouble. When Robin gets hurt, she starts asking like, "Is Batman okay?"
Aww.
And it's cool because she'll sit in the car and start singing the Batman song too.
Another memorable feature with it was the theme song. I mean, people know Pow Zap and Wham, and of course the Robin's Holy This, Holy That.
I actually started using that at work just to break up the monotony.
Oh, and the villains. Like, man, they did such a good job capturing the essence of those villains. They were funny as hell. The actors were so good, and they loved it. The actors loved being on Batman.
I think the funniest was Cesar Romero not shaving his mustache.
It's so goofy.
I know, but it fit the show. It's like, I'm not shaving this.
I've had it my whole career, and I'm not shaving it off. And it's like, it's a mustache. It grows back in, 2 days?
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on. So they trimmed it low and just painted over it. It's like, And then Burgess Meredith, he quit smoking, or he didn't smoke, so part of the whack, whack, whack for the Penguin was part of him going...
I mean... Even the Mr. Freeze, was it 2 or 3 actors played him?
Yeah.
And I felt like they even thought about him setting up the different things. So, the room's really cold, but you can only stay in this little heated area. I laughed about that every time.
And Mr. Freeze wasn't even Mr. Freeze until that 60s show. I think he was originally called Mr. Zero or something like that.
Yeah.
It was the same similar concept. They didn't give him much of a backstory. He's just kind of like a stupid throwaway villain, really. But the show put him in the light. And then it wasn't until the animated series where they said, we love this character and we're going to give him more depth and make you feel for him. And the animated series really captured like what we know as Mr. Freeze, and it kind of became a Catwoman where is he really a good guy or is he a bad guy, like tug and pull kind of thing. And Frank Gorshin as a Riddler was just fantastic. I mean, I know people bash on Batman the TV series because it's campy, it's over the top, it's not dark, but it has so much comic book essence. Like, if you want to see the costumes and the way those characters look come to life, that show had it.
Oh, yeah.
It had it all. It was like comic book come to life, especially that 60s comic book form. It was there. It was all there. Even Gotham City wasn't just... I mean, it wasn't dark like Tim Burton's Gotham City, but it was definitely its own place. Yeah, they used stock footage for outside scenes and stuff,
Fuck
but
it.
What were you going to do at that time? Hell, they didn't even know Batman was going to be as successful as it was. They said that it had the lowest test scores when they showed it to like the executives, and if they didn't have already bought the rights to the show, it wouldn't have aired.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking ridiculous.
And look at what happened. It became part of the 3 Bs in the 60s. Bond, Beatles, and Batman.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I know, right? It's crazy. I mean, and it became this huge phenomenon, and the villains were picked because William Dozier was friends with a lot of actors, like Burgess Meredith as Penguin, Cesar Romero as Joker, Frank Gorshin, and then Frank Gorshin and Adam West became really good friends.
Julie Newmar as Catwoman.
I was just going to say, man, you want to talk about the comedy, but there were some
Risque.
high-quality sexual innuendos in that show that went over a lot of kids' heads. And
I think the one that always sticks out to me is the college one.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I remember when they finally released it out on Blu-ray, and I'm rewatching the whole series. I get to that episode. I think it's actually her last run as Catwoman, isn't it?
Yeah, she only was in 2 seasons.
Yeah, and then her and Adam West have this really, like, high sexually tense moment in a frat house. And I'm sitting there going, wait, this was a kid's show?
Well, never mind. In her first episode, she says to one of the henchmen, "You can brush my pussy willows before you leave." And it's like, what the
fuck? but to her credit, all the cat puns that she had
yeah.
were a little bit way over everyone's head.
I'll tell you what, though, man. Her and Adam West, the chemistry they had together as those characters, holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you felt like you really wanted them to be a real couple because they were that good together. I mean, even Eartha Kitt really wasn't that bad, and Lee Merriweather wasn't terrible. But
I think Eartha Kitt played up the cat puns a little too much.
Yeah.
And Lee Merriweather, I felt like was a once and done because she was only in the movie, right?
She was in an episode with King Tut. She was a totally different character,
okay.
And I think she was like some rich person's daughter that was kidnapped for ransom, and King Tut wanted to marry her if he didn't get the ransom or something because she looked like Nefertiti or whatever.
But yeah, like out of the 3, obviously Julie Newmar is going to be the most memorable. She actually, I felt, made that character. And then it was kind of surprising, like when she disappeared, and then we got Eartha Kitt, which it was, like I said, it was nice seeing that Catwoman came back, but like I said, the cat puns were a little too much with Eartha Kitt.
She was really good at rolling the R's and doing the purr thing. I will say, man, she nailed that. But I think she's also a singer, so I'm sure that shit came natural to her.
But when you brought up King Tut, that was one villain I absolutely still hate.
You gotta admit, Victor Buono was really good, though.
I think that was the point. Like, he's so good, but yet that character is such an obnoxious asshole.
I know, right?
I wanted to punch him in the throat.
They said that he was so good at playing King Tut that they would just give him random dumb shit and he would just make it work. Like, oh, praise me for finding Abu Rabu Simbu 2's magical elixir. And it's like, this is just like Abu Simbel, but they're just mixing gibberish with it, and he's making it work.
And that was the one villain I always thought they overused, but because somehow they always brought him back. I'm like, how many times is this guy gonna get hit in the head? I'm like, he has like 9 concussions in.
And that was the thing with the character. He was a regular teacher who taught Egyptology in college, and whenever he got hit in the head, he would just like go back to being King Tut. He would believe he was King Tut and just become a supervillain. That was the thing. They made up certain villains for certain actors that come on the show. Like one of the more famous ones was Vincent Price's Egghead.
Yeah, that one was funny, dude. The egg puns are always gonna be.
There were some really stupid ones though. Like I like, was it Cliff Robertson? But to be that famous cowboy Shane, they had the villain Shame. I was like, I don't know. I watched the episodes, but
yeah,
such a weak villain. I think Art Carney was Archer or something, and then they even had the Minstrel and.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Minstrel.
They were I know, they're so forgettable. Liberace was funny.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
He played like a dual character.
My evil self.
Yeah, there was the good one and the bad one, but the good one still helped the bad one.
But like you said, it's a concept of the times. Like Liberace was big during that time, so it was cool seeing him play a villain.
Yeah.
So.
Also, when ABC did the show The Green Hornet, very famous for the start of Bruce Lee as Kato, same network, they brought the Green Hornet and Kato on to try to get more viewers to check out Green Hornet, and it was this, like, they help each other and then they fight each other at the end.
Yeah, I think they didn't realize, like, they were both, yeah, obviously vigilantes, but, like, one thought the other was the villain at the time.
I think that was the point of the Green Hornet, too. Like, he's supposed to pretend to be a bad guy, but really he's working to stop the bad guys.
Wasn't that something about the stamps, too, with that episode? I remember something odd, like...
Yeah, they put Green Hornet and Kato in a stamp machine. Something fucking weird. I do know there's a really funny story that apparently Burt Ward, like, bragging about his black belt achievements.
Oh no.
And Bruce Lee heard about this and he was saying shit on set like, oh, he thinks he's hot shit, and he goes, well, I'm gonna, because Bruce Lee like really would at times like hit stunt, like he hated stuntmen apparently.
Damn.
Yeah, because he was like, we got to do our own shit, you know, kind of. And when he heard people were like better, he got competitive. Well, I remember John Saxon told a story on Enter the Dragon. Somebody was questioning whether or not what Bruce Lee could do was real or not, and he just went up to this person and like that broke the dude's nose and was like, okay, you're good.
Wow.
So when Bruce Lee heard Burt Ward bragging about how awesome he was at martial arts, he was like, oh yeah? And they said that Burt Ward was scared shitless.
And I feel bad that like Burt Ward probably doesn't get enough credit that Adam West did too. Like
I agree, because he was a prominent character. It was the first thing they said he ever did, and sometimes he could be really annoying because he was just this happy-go-lucky kid. And you know, how would you feel like if you're a kid and then you get into a major successful thing and you're all of a sudden like the bee's knees? You know, I mean, he was telling a story about how somebody saw him in a laundromat and his clothes were still wet by the time he came back, and he was like, why are my clothes wet? And they said, oh, well, some lady saw you put your clothes in and took your clothes out and took a picture of your clothes and didn't put them back in the dryer or something.
What an asshole.
I know, right? Like, people were that obsessed with like pop culture phenomenon, you know, that you had to like affect people in their lives like this. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we go to conventions, but holy fuck, man, they're just people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to steal their shit or, you know, whatever. That's fucked up. Yeesh. But yeah, I mean, the 60s Batman show was like this incredible phenomenon. And it was originally supposed to be an hour show, but then they broke it in two, figuring, well, maybe an hour's too much, and then it added to that flavor of here's a little more taste for you wanting more, and it was like the first time they did it, and that's how they got 120 some episodes in 3 years out of it.
I mean, if you're filming an hour and splitting it in half, I mean, it actually was nice seeing the cliffhangers, but over time, the same thing would keep happening.
The show itself is very wash, rinse, and repeat, and I think that's why it's kind of good to just watch it here, watch it there. You know, like even I need a break from it at times. As cool as it is, and as much as I love it, I do need a break from it because it's the same shit over and over again. Another little trivia fact, the guy who does the same bat time, same bat channel, that's William Dozier, the producer of the show.
Oh, no shit.
They couldn't find a narrator, so he said, well, just give it to me, I'll do it. And I don't think they originally did the same bat time. It was just same time, and then when everything was bat this, bat that, then it became same bat time, same bat channel.
I mean, but even his voice is very iconic. As soon as he starts narrating the beginning of the episode, you're like, oh shit, yeah.
You know who it is instantly. It's the narrator. And then here it turned out it was the producer of the show, which made it even funnier.
I mean, if it keeps working within itself, it actually helps out in the long run.
It's very, like you said, very memorable, very iconic. And it's a cool sounding voice, too.
There's like some things now that I've seen them reuse as like in the newer, like really dark, gritty movies. Like take, for instance, the mask that Heath Ledger wears is actually the same one that they use in the show. Not exactly the same, but the same concept.
Yeah, Cesar Romero wore that mask in it was actually his first episode as the Joker. He's pretending to be an opera singer, clown, and it's the same design that Heath Ledger wears in The Dark Knight in the bank scene.
Yeah.
Also, the Joker bust that's painted in Tim Burton's movie where they're in the museum and they're messing things up, and you see one of the goons painting the green hair and the red lips on a little bust. There was a little Joker bust in an episode where Joker is even like ruining art pieces with other paint and shit.
I actually just got to that episode.
and then Joker becomes like this art teacher or something because the guy who sees all the paintings all fucked up, he's like, no, this is art, this is beautiful. That was taken and obviously put in Tim Burton's movie. And then even in Batman Returns, Penguin is running for mayor. Yeah. There was an episode in the TV's Batman series where Penguin runs for mayor.
And it's kind of cool because you can see that the people who wrote these are actually fans of the show. So you're taking like little snippets here and there and then reusing them on a grander scale.
Absolutely.
And like you said, Tim Burton doing it, Christopher Nolan doing it. I actually remember his name.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's cool seeing them actually go, yeah, this is kind of our thing, so why not?
Oh, another character we didn't mention, and it sounds funny, but it's the Batmobile.
Oh my gosh.
The Batmobile is basically its own character. It became one of the most popular cars ever. It was a concept car designed by George Barris. He was a famous car designer. He took a Ford Lincoln Futura, which was just, like I said, a concept car. I don't think it really went anywhere or did anything, but it had the bubble windows and that fin look in the back, and they said that in the comic books, the Batmobile was originally like a Lincoln Zephyr with just a bat face on it, and he incorporated the bat features into the car and gave it that nice shiny gloss black with the red trim outlines, and it looks so cool. And how on the fins in the back he gave the sharp points kind of like in the cape. It looked really cool. And the flamethrower. Oh man. Like everything that we know about Batman is basically in that show. And how memorable it is and how off the comic book pages it is that when Tim Burton's Batman 89 came out, it was kind of like seeing the shit from the show now just amplified in a way. Like, okay, here's Gotham City in the show that you know. Now we're going to amplify it, make it look bigger budget, grander scale, look more real like Gotham City. You know, like how before there used to be the TV show and then there was the movie, and you could definitely see a clear different budget difference and quality version. I kind of felt like even though there was no continuity at all with, the show was the show and the Batman 89 was Batman 89, but you still were like, wow, this is what Batman would look like as its own motion picture, just given this budget, the time and energy and focus just for that, and they would incorporate those concepts. Like the Batmobile, it has to have like some sort of bat features to it, not just look like a tank, and have all the cool gadgets and be remote controlled and all this other wild shit. And like the Batwing looked like a bat symbol. It was kind of like how the Batarangs looked like Batarangs. They weren't actually just like you go to like a surplus store or whatever and get some sort of Batarang, because like some of that stuff does exist, but it doesn't have these bat features. And that's, I think, part of the other charm with Batman 89 is like they still kept up with that. They took that, like the Batarang looks like an actual bat. The Batmobile still has bat features to it. Like all that equipment was still there. He still had the yellow symbol on the chest. Now they've gotten so far removed from that stuff from the movies, it's just, here's equipment. Your Batarang doesn't really look like a Batarang. It's just a Batarang. Your grappling hook's just a grappling hook. The Batmobile, it just looks like a tank or a high-powered car. It kind of takes away the charm of what Batman really is and a lot of the fun.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ben Affleck's Batman is probably the closest thing we've had come close with, like, bringing the suit back to human anatomy. Some of his gadgets are, like, very, like, bat-looking-esque and has, like, a lot of symbolism to his character. But even the Batmobile looked more like a high-powered car.
Yeah.
It didn't really look like Batmobile,
I mean, also his suit, too, because if you're looking at Adam West's suit, it just looked like it was, like a Kevlar weave, whatever, but it was pretty much just spandex.
Yeah.
And even with Ben Affleck's, his looks more like closer to spandex than what anybody else's has in, the past 30 years?
Exactly. The thing is, because we know who Bruce Wayne is, you know that even though it doesn't have all the armature, it still looks like, I mean, you still know that it's going to be bulletproof or something high end. Otherwise, this guy wouldn't be going out with it, in it. 'Cause, I mean, and that's what's pretty wild about Batman, is that he can fool people like that. And I always liked how if there was a different suit, like I always felt like his regular human anatomy looking suit that was more theatrical and scary was used for that. It's more for patrol, more for thugs. But if he had to like up it, like in Justice League, he put on that high-powered suit, or when he fought Superman, he put on the lead armor. That was a good reason for him to change his suit.
Yeah.
Like when Christian Bale had the armor-plated one, and like in Dark Knight, and then it stuck with him through the Dark Knight Rises, I was like, this isn't really a Batman suit. This is just a tactical suit.
No. Just has pointy ears.
Yeah, this is pretty much it. You couldn't even see the bat symbol on his chest.
Wait, he had a bat symbol?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly. See what I mean? And that's one thing that bothered me, because like sometimes those Christopher Nolan movies were just too real.
We watch fantasy films to be in fantasy. I don't want something in reality like I'm going to see every day.
Yeah, it takes away the fun. Like how like Bane wasn't created at the time for the TV show, and I don't even think you could make it work. I think you probably could by saying it was just a circus strongman.
I think that, or the wrestlers.
Yeah, you could say something like that as well.
Because I'm thinking, like when you said brought up Bane, I was thinking the old like movies with the luchadors that were like fighting monsters and stuff. They could use one of them to play Bane.
I know they highly considered bringing Two-Face into the show at one point.
I'm glad they did it at the time, but the person that wanted to play it ended up playing him later. Which at the time you had the Star Trek show, so Captain Kirk, Bill Shatner, yeah, was the person they wanted to play Two-Face. But at the time you couldn't do it because he's on Star Trek. Timing. But
I also think they didn't really, like, Two-Face is a scary character.
Yeah, he is.
It's a lot of prosthetics, even though I think they probably would have done something different where maybe they would have just put a mask on him, like half of his face or something.
Yeah.
And I think instead of him being a district attorney, the rumor was that he was going to be a news anchor, and a camera blew up, and that's what caused the scarring on the face.
I'm trying to remember. Because they ended up doing it later, as an animated film. And William Shatner was it. I think he was a news anchor, but it was one of the lights that burst and hit him in the face.
I haven't watched it in a while, so it's hard for me to remember.
I think the one thing that sticks out is when they brought 60s Batman back. I was so excited because they did 2 animated movies. One was, I think, Return of the Caped Crusader, and the other one was Two-Face. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
I think it was just called Batman versus Two-Face.
And you finally got the return of Adam West, Burt Ward,
Julie Newmar.
But at some point, they brainwash Batman, and he starts using quotes from current Batman. And what got me was they use a line from the Dark Knight Rises when he's talking to Catwoman, verbatim what Christian Bale says to Anne Hathaway, and I'm sitting there going, that's what it dawned on me, that they literally just took these lines and used it as crazy Batman. And I'm like, no shit, this is awesome.
Didn't he even do you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like the only way Adam West could do it. And he got more holy this, holy that. Like I think Robin was trying to learn ballet, and he goes, holy plie.
But it shows that even over time, that the Adam West 60s Batman was still relevant to a point.
Absolutely.
And showing that these people are paying homage to it and still using some of the ideas. I was actually happy to even see it come back in comic book form.
Me too. I thought that was so cool, because I mean it screams comic book.
Oh,
I mean, like I said, it's literally taken right off the pages, and I don't understand. Like, I can get why if people don't like it because the camp is too much for them, and some people just like super serious stuff all the time. It's got to be more realistic, and it's not Batman, it's not dark. It's like, okay, I get it. And yeah, it is repetitive. I can't really say it's the greatest show on TV because it never really evolved, but it definitely is one of the greatest impacts. But it was also one of those, like, ambitious, like one of the greatest ambitious shows, and the success was very much garnered. I can see why, like, just because, like, it is the way it is, it gets repetitive and it gets tired. But you go back and take a break and go, this show's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
It's one of those shows where it's easily to get sick and tired of, but yet it's also something. It's like if it was pro wrestling. You don't want the same champion over and over and over again, otherwise it gets old. So you take a break from it, you go back and you go, okay, here's something new. I mean, I think that's what makes 60s Batman like so unique, is like it's so good, but you can't have too much of it. And then when you can go back and get a little flavor of something else, like the comic books, like we're still interested, like, oh, this was really cool. When they did the animated stuff and brought back Adam West and Burt Ward and Julie Newmar, we were like, cool, we're getting some more 60s Batman stuff. And you don't have to worry about their age being an issue, and they still incorporated their gadgets, their equipment, their, like, vehicles, and like everything was still like the way that show could have been, just a little more because it was animated.
And pretty much like what I do with Thea, we'll watch one story arc, so like 2 episodes, because anything past that she kind of gets bored too, because like you said, it's very repetitive. So like usually it's Saturday and Sunday, we'll watch one story arc each night. And it's just enough because like it keeps you coming back for more. Where if we would have spent the whole time watching the entire fucking series, I probably would have wanted to punch somebody in the face.
I know when I was so hungry for it for so long, I was like, oh, I just binged on it, and then of course you see some of the villains that you didn't remember, and you're like, oof.
Now I remember why I don't remember.
Yeah. Like there are literally some episodes that I'm just like, no, I'm gonna skip these because this is just bad.
I remember we were so hungry for just getting a hold of it. We got a hold of that bootleg, and we burned through that. And then when it finally came out, we were so excited. Like, we burned through that again.
Yeah.
It was one of the few times I ended up buying the box set, like the collector's box set, because it's like one of those few things that I knew we were never going to see again.
Yeah, it took so long to come out on the set that it did, and it was just like, fuck it, it's here, I'm getting it now, because it was such a hard commodity to get. I think there was a rights issue, I think they were able to market the 60s movie, and then I remember watching the hell out of that, and it got tiring because I was like, I know there's other good stuff to this show. It's like, I don't need to just keep watching this movie, but it's the only thing of this form available. And, oh man, that kind of drove me nuts there for a while, too.
But I think the movie itself was, for better or worse, like, very over the top. Because you're now having Batman versus, 5 villains? And you're dehydrating world leader.
Yeah. You had the main ones from the comic books that was who they were. I don't think there was one of the original ones from that show in there.
No.
It was Joker, Penguin, Riddler, and Catwoman. And Catwoman wasn't Selena Kyle. They said her name was Kitka.
Yeah. That's why it's like, she's technically Catwoman, but she's not.
Yeah.
So that was Lee Merriweather who did that.
And I know that Julie Newmar couldn't do it because she was filming a movie. And that's why she couldn't be a part of it. But Julie's always going to be Catwoman.
Yeah.
I mean, man, you want to talk about sex appeal and just being that character. It was like, I mean, holy fuck, you look at her in that show still and you're like, damn, I could fall in love, and she's got to be, 80 now?
I mean, even when they did that, Return to the Batcave documentary movie?
Oh, The Misadventures of Adam West and Burt Ward.
Yeah.
That was fun!
I was actually excited because, it gave a lot of backstory to the show. It was, documentary and movie within the same thing. And it was funny just seeing all them come back, who were alive at the time.
Yeah, Frank Gorshin was still alive at the time, so you had him and Julie. Lee Merriweather had a cameo in it. She wasn't herself, though. She was a waitress that came up to Adam West and Burt Ward. What happens is, you find out at the end of the movie, Frank Gorshin steals the Batmobile from a exhibit. And so Adam West and Burt Ward are on this hunt to find the Batmobile. And they kind of go on like a wild chase, and they reminisce about the old show, and they're getting riddles, or I guess it's been a while since I saw it, but during the riddles they reminisce about their time on the series until it got canceled, and and then they find out that Frank Gorshin's upset because he felt like the villains never got the proper respect.
But if you think about it, I think that Riddler probably had a lot more story arcs than a lot of the other ones because he was such a standout villain.
I was surprised to see that Frank Gorshin wasn't in the second season.
Yeah.
The majority of his stuff was in the first season, and then John Astin played him in 2 episodes in the second season, and then Frank Gorshin came back in the third.
Which honestly was kind of a sad thing because you could tell that's when it started taking its downturn.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for Yvonne Clarke coming in as Batgirl because you're at this moment where everything's starting to change and they try to bring in a new hero to kind of save the day. And I felt like she got the shitty end of the stick.
Yeah, unfortunately, it kind of was that way. And I know that Adam West felt like he got a little insecure because it was like, wait a minute, aren't I good enough? Why are you bringing somebody else in here?
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to be a breath of fresh air into the series, which was already kind of getting stale.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like she was even a non-original character. Batgirl was in the comic books. I mean, her costume looked cool too. I thought Yvonne Clarke. Is it Clarke? Craig?
Did I say it wrong? Oh shit.
I don't know. Either way, look it up.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
I think it's Craig.
Yeah.
Yvonne Craig. I don't know. But yeah, I like you said, I felt bad for her, and they chopped the show down to a half hour because the budgets were just astronomical and the ratings weren't there, but it was still a show that was making money, and I think it was still geared towards kids, and that was the thing. And they said, well, the kids aren't the one buying the stuff, and we're on prime time.
Yeah.
So the adults are the ones that buy the advertisements and the commercials. And hell, there was that one episode where they had all the villains escape from prison, and then they had to turn the lights off and make the villains invisible and fight them in the dark. And it just got...
Yeah.
got over the top. There wasn't too many cliffhanger endings anymore. I think there was one 3-part series where they went to London.
Oh yeah.
They even like shipped the Batmobile over there and had like a British Batcave too.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Oh man, it was some funny shit though. But yeah, it was sad seeing like some of it was kind of clever, but they also said with Yvonne Craig in there that it was almost a little too much. Like you couldn't build a story because there was more dialogue in such a short episode. I mean, we're so used to half-hour episodes where things flow better now. Maybe they just didn't know what to do with it, or they relied too much on some sort of cliffhanger in the middle of the show, or I don't know, but they really didn't get it. I mean, I still watch stuff in the third season and go, what they did was pretty clever.
Yeah.
And smart, and it kind of was a little refreshing actually to not get the same bat time, same bat channel. And yet at the same time, I can see why they axed it. They just said, it's too much. It's like costing way too much. The ratings are dipping before it gets too late. Just pull the plug on it.
Yeah.
Which was sad because I still feel like there was at least another season in it. And they did say that if they didn't strike the set, especially the Batcave set, NBC probably would have bought it and at least done another season.
That would have been cool to see. I think if they would have figured out how to do their formula, they probably would have been fine.
Yeah, under different creative minds, I would have been like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, would they change the costumes too? Would they try something different? Because that wasn't uncommon that the look would change. Maybe like we said, the story or the formula would be a little different. And
because if they're doing a story arc over an hour and they're splitting it in half to do 2 episodes, and then now they're bringing it down to a half hour, trying to fit it in to a half hour instead of an hour, that's probably, like you said, that's probably where a lot of it faltered. Because now you're trying to just squeeze it, where you could just be like, all right, let's figure out a different formula in a half hour.
Because it wasn't like they had to build any sort of backstory for all the villains or nothing.
They're
either.
already there.
Maybe they could have been a little more serious with it, not so jokey. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they could have given it a little more grit, like how the Munsters show was.
Yeah.
Would have been interesting. Added some new villains that maybe were more related to the comic book. I don't know. But I know they did have some reunion special in the 70s at one point, but all I heard was it wasn't anything to be special about. Yeah, I don't even know. It almost looked like one of those variety show kind of things, not even like a real Batman episode. So
okay,
I'm like, well, maybe that was part of the problem.
I think that's also a problem with a lot of the reunion episodes. They're like, all right, let's try to like cater to everybody. Let's try to get everybody back, and then there's like no story.
Yeah.
Even with the popularity of that show, it's still, like you said, it's still coming back. Like little pieces here and there. Like I know, take for instance, there's pieces of it in the Lego Batman movie, and I think Lego Batman 3, you actually could play as Adam West. I think he was the narrator.
That's really cool.
Because I know you could play as the 60s Batman in the game and actually had the POW, Zap, whatever, as your punching characters. And I thought that was actually like the funniest thing because it caught me off guard because Lexi plays those Lego games. And I'm like, wait, is that really Adam West? But I would say even in your more grittier games, the only reason I played Arkham City and Arkham Knight as much as I did is because I played as the Adam West Batman. I played through like normally just to unlock everything, and then I go back and replay it multiple times as Adam West Batman. So like looking at the surroundings with Adam West Batman, it does not fit.
Oh hell no!
But it made it amazing because you're kicking someone's ass as Adam West. Even the Batmobile, the tank version of the '60s Batman, had the colors, everything. It was beautiful.
Nice.
So it makes me wonder like what they're gonna try to do with that property, because I feel like they could keep doing a lot more with it. I know it's a lot more lucrative if they would use it like they just did. Because like making the comic books is one thing they're going to be able to do. Obviously can't do any more animated movies because Adam West is no longer with us. But even if they're doing more Batman games, just incorporating something with it would be kind of cool to see.
Comics, of course.
Yeah.
For the drawings and all that.
I know that they're not reintroducing, like re-putting back out some of the older toys. Because Target had a bunch of the Adam West Batman figures, the Batmobile, and I think the Batcave.
I think McFarlane Toys is doing them too.
And honestly, the surf one is always going to make me laugh.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That was the one that Thea actually picked up. And I'm sitting there going, Thea, Mommy's going to kill me if I let you do that. But
I think I had that at one point.
It's a funny looking thing. I'm like looking up. I think I have it. Yeah. But just him wearing the bat outfit with the swim trunks on. And
Yellow
him
swim trunks, and then he's got a surfboard with the bat symbol on it. And he was surfing against Joker, who had a surfboard with his Joker face on it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This show is fantastic.
I like, as we're sitting here going, I might actually go and watch the end.
Yeah, But yeah, I'll always remember the 60s Batman show being my first introduction of like a live action Batman, and then being familiar with the comic books and going, wow, this is like, I remember getting more familiar as a kid with Batman 89 going like, why is this suit black? Like that like totally threw me off.
Oh yeah.
I was like, it's gray and blue, and I understand why they made it black though. I mean, it's logical more than anything really. And it's kind of ridiculous, really, if it was just blue and gray. I mean, even the black and gray makes more sense.
But like I said, the bright colors, trying to make it more kid-oriented.
And that's how the comic was. And I want to say, I think I read somewhere that, what's his name? Bob Kane and Neil Adams, who were taking part in creating Batman, I think Bob Kane especially didn't really care for the blue and gray look. I think he wanted it more dark, but it could have also been a printing thing back in the comics at the time. I mean, they had a problem with the Hulk at one point where he was all gray and had to change it to green. So
yeah.
Maybe that could have been the issues. I don't know. But that's like, the traditional look of Batman is what we got. And same with Robin. And seeing what they are to the evolution now is really wild. Like, even the Robin costumes that you, like in Batman v Superman, you see the Robin costume in the display case as a tribute to Jason Todd. That looks like a really cool modern Robin costume.
I know. I mean, but Robin's costume then.
Oh yeah, it was totally ridiculous. I mean, the tights are ridiculous, but that's what the old superheroes look like. I think, despite a lot of criticism that Zack Snyder has, I will say, like, when it comes to like fantastic characters in his movies, whoever he gets for his costumes are absolutely fantastic. Like just watch the Justice League. I mean, and obviously Batman v Superman. Watchmen's another one where they're incredible. They're believable. It's a comic book movie, but they do have their elements in there that make you go, yeah, I can believe it. And they're still sticking to the realm of being in a comic book version. Like, I think Superman's costume is probably the best for Man of Steel that Henry Cavill wears, is probably the best one on screen, because it could be something that's alien, yet it's still sticking traditional.
I know, like, the design they have in it, like you said, alien, but yet still traditional. Yeah.
And I like that. I like how they say, okay, it's not tights, it's believable. And when they said the S isn't really an S, it's a symbol, like their family symbol, I was like, that's genius.
Yeah, it's like almost their crest.
I was like, I liked that. Oh man, I mean, there was so much right about what he was doing, and a lot of it stems from this inspiration of 1960s Batman. And like I said, look how it transitioned, and he had these little tributes and knickknacks and just pieces in Batman 89, and then Batman 89 became the next thing in the phase of the comic book evolution. It's like, it's okay to be dark, it's okay to be serious, it's okay to make these costumes look real and gritty and legit. It's okay to take things that influence from the comic books or the show, or things that we love, and incorporate it, make it a little bit over the top, but not too over the top. Like the Batmobile. It still looks like a tank, but it had those bat wings. It was just enough to make you go, Batmobile.
Exactly.
I mean, the Batwing, that's the Batwing.
The funny thing is, like, I would love to have seen Adam West crossover with Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, and then use Christopher Reeve
Oh
as that would
yeah,
have been like the perfect Batman versus Superman arc. I would have loved to see.
that would have been really cool.
But I think it was a little too early on before we got Linda Carter and Christopher Reeve. I thought that would have been cool to see because your original three right there would have been awesome.
Mm-hmm. I remember Adam West apparently said he was upset about Batman '89, like he didn't get a cameo in it, even though I don't think he really would have fit in that Batman movie, no matter how great of an actor he is. I don't. At first, I want to say there is some interview out there where he might have not even been too keen on Michael Keaton playing Batman originally either. I mean, who really was at the time? But you look back and, I mean, Michael Keaton's still my favorite Batman. I still think he's the best movie Batman. I think Ben Affleck then is the best comic book adaptation for a movie Batman.
Yeah.
Performance and aesthetics.
Yeah. I mean, I get criticism all the time for saying Ben Affleck's probably the best Batman in 30 years.
Nah, I think it's fair. I know I was one of those guys that said, what the fuck are they thinking? But he proved us wrong, so. Which I'm happy for. I'll happily admit that I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't George Clooney, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm still upset that we probably won't get too much more from Ben Affleck. I know you never say never, but who knows?
I mean, would you want to see Ben Affleck in the 60s Batman costume?
Hey, with this Flash universe stuff, who knows what they can do now?
I mean, it would
do
be
some
cool.
like fake CGI on somebody else's face, and Flash goes back and is like, "Oh, hello there, fellow crime fighter."
Yeah. I would have loved just to see like someone just staying there in the suit, or just using a clip from the old movie or the show, just kind of pop up, just like this is what we all stem from.
Mm-hmm.
That would be amazing.
I'd still take influence from that Batman show. I even thought it would be so fun to just get costumes very similar and redo something like us doing it or whatever, or do the pow zap and wham, and just give like that old nostalgia back again, and like do like a couple YouTube episodes or something of it, and get these like crazy situations. Oh, will Robin escape? You know, same bat time.
I think we kind of
bat channel.
I think it'd be kind of funny, just like obviously I'm gonna be Robin. Just put my M right here.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily take influence, whether it's good or bad, from Batman. You can enjoy it. I know some people absolutely won't, and it's fine. I get it. It's not everybody's thing. But I know it's made an impact on us for sure. It's sad that it typecasted Adam West in his career. I mean, to the point where he could only pretty much do public appearances as Batman for a living there for a while. And he even said he felt like he got into a low point when he was in the costume and got shot out of a cannon.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was. I think it was like some public appearance, and they said, "Watch Batman get shot out of a cannon" or something. Yeah.
Holy shit! I mean, it's cool that he did it, but damn.
Yeah. I know, right?
I think they actually talk about that in there, don't they? About how he hit that low point and that's all he could really do on that documentary.
He even did a voice in. There was a couple cartoons because, of course, Adam West had a resurgence in his career, and he was known for obviously being Mayor West in Family Guy. But he did a voice in Batman the Animated Series. He was basically playing himself. He played a character called the Gray Ghost, who was an actor who played this superhero. Bruce Wayne watched him as a kid. And here, some villain took something from that movie or show that he was in and was incorporating it in these crimes. So Batman goes to the actor and says, "Hey, I need your help with this." And you see he's like poor, he's not getting any work. But after the crime is solved, he has a resurgence and doing meet and greets, and they're like re-releasing Gray Ghost things again, and it was pretty cool. It was like a resurgence of Adam West's career, literally, and
Yeah.
that typecasting. I liked how the the writers of the show put that in there, and it told Adam West's story, and it showed that it had a happy ending to it.
And like you said, it's cool seeing them understand what that dude went through and writing a character for him. And even like you said, a cameo is all we need sometimes.
Yeah, he did so many cameos, like in The Simpsons, he was himself. I think he even did like a recreated Batman scene or something and Burt Ward even came back and did a cameo voice for it. And they did another Batman cartoon where I think he was the mayor in that as well.
So in a way, he's always going to be Batman.
Yeah.
I guess definitely to us.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and a lot of that stuff I still get a kick out of seeing, like whether it's toys or models. Hell, I sat in the Batmobile at a Comic-Con. That was a shit ton of fun.
Yeah.
And then Jeff and I actually had the pleasure of meeting Adam West.
Honestly, I was surprised like how quick we met him. That was what caught me off guard.
Yeah, the line was not. I don't want to. We were there early though. It wasn't like he didn't have a line. It was steady. It was definitely steady.
Because I was expecting now. That's also what, 15 years ago?
I think it was 2011.
Yeah. 11 years ago. 10 years ago.
Well, plus people couldn't get pictures with him either.
That's right.
Because the flashes triggered his seizures.
Okay.
So they said, I think they said if you were gonna do it, just take your flash off. But I guess they just said no, just don't do it at all.
I mean, that would have been cool getting a picture with the man. But...
It would have been, yeah, I know, right? But man, what a gracious guy, totally upbeat, almost like Stan Lee in a way. Just couldn't get him down.
It's just one of those things. We had that, I would say 5 years where we got to meet a lot of cool people, and because cons weren't that big, and it kind of sucks because we were used to it.
Yeah.
So we got to meet Stan Lee, Adam West, and Robert Englund relatively quick, and now 10 years later we're sitting here going, fuck, I don't want to do this next one if it's going to be an 8-hour wait to meet.
Yeah, I know, right? I went to one in New Jersey, and they had to turn people away because it was way too packed.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Oh, and then John met Robert Englund, and what did he say? He was in line for 6 hours?
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
We're also at the point we've met all the people we wanted to meet. We're getting to that point where now it's just we're going for the aesthetic. Might meet somebody, might even just do a photo op because they're kind of
the Q&As.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you can just be like, hey, pick me for a question.
I don't know. Would you rather see me get in a debate with at the time it would have been Adam West?
I'd rather see you get in a debate with Burt Ward. Leave Adam West alone.
I think that would have been funny.
Yeah.
Even with I think I said it before, Burt West did not get enough credit.
Burt Ward.
Yeah.
You said Burt West.
Same dude. But yeah, I think Burt Ward did not get enough credit. Even we didn't give him enough credit. Because that dude put up with a lot of bullshit. He's still probably putting up with a lot of bullshit.
I believe he does put up with a lot of bullshit. And he doesn't seem like a bad dude,
No.
but I don't know. I mean, he seemed like he got away from the Hollywood spotlight, which probably for his sake and many others is just good for sanity, because Hollywood changes people in a bad way. But, you're right. He's... how many Robins have we had on screen?
2, maybe 3. I can remember him and Chris O'Donnell.
And then there was that show Titans. I never watched it, but yeah. So
I forgot about that one.
There you go. I know. I'm very curious as to. Originally, they were thinking of Marlon Wayans, I think, as Robin.
Oh, as in the movie version.
Yeah, or they wanted him for Batman Returns, and then they wrote him out, or he was originally supposed to be Robin in Batman Forever, and
I could see him going Batman Forever, because Jim Carrey being the Riddler kind of would be a nice offset, kind of having 2 comedians play.
I don't know if he would have been his high energy self, though. I think we would have seen a different Marlon Wayans. And I think that's what they saw and we didn't get it. Because if you actually watch him in interviews, he's not all like the character he is in Scary Movie. He's
Listen.
actually very well composed. Well, now he is. I mean, he's also 30 years older.
Yeah.
But Marlon Wayans is actually like very smart too. You can tell he's very intelligent, and I think it would have been curious because I was genuinely like, huh, that's an interesting casting choice.
I mean, he did do G.I. Joe, and
yeah, I actually thought he was one of the better parts of that movie. So, with that being said, do you have any fun memories of Batman the TV series?
Actually, I think it would be Vincent Price, because like a character called Egghead having so many egg puns is one thing, but Vincent Price is always gonna be an amazing actor in what he does. Even if it's a cheesy villain who is egg puns out the ass, he always put on the performance.
Exactly.
And I honestly want to believe that's probably my true introduction to Vincent Price.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No shit.
I would love to say like it was House on Haunted Hill or House of Wax. No, it was 60s Batman. Because I remember that. I remember the big head. It wasn't until later on that I put two and two together. Like, yeah, I saw this character before. And then I think it was after we were watching House of Wax. I'm like, that voice sounds familiar.
For me, I gotta say, it's like being my first introduction to Batman, being more memorable as a kid, and then having that something about that gravitation to like, wow, this is a live action comic book basically come to life, and then you re-up it for Batman '89, and you're just like, wow, this is what they can do to take it more seriously.
Yeah.
And seeing how they still, like I said, took subtle Batman elements, put it in, and because when you watch Batman '89, it still has this stylized look and feel of some of the old '60s show in there. Like Joker's colors, like believe it or not, as stupid as it sounds, but the red poles in the chemical factory, some of the signs that they have with the labels that are still kind of faded. It still kind of has this like 60s Batman symbolism to it. And I love seeing that just in this different, more serious fashion. And it kind of puts a little more charm to '89 that Returns and the others don't have, where they're a little more serious and they got away from that tribute kind of thing. And that's where I think seeing the show and then Batman '89 have this sort of like DNA connection in a way. And it has like a very very deep nostalgia where I'm just like very, very much in love with, and I think it's so cool to see. Also watching them with my dad and hearing him telling me about like how cool this Batmobile was and how we got the '60s TV show Batmobile straight into the the Tim Burton Michael Keaton Batmobile. I mean, those two kick-ass cars back to back were awesome. And then Batman Forever, you're like, what is this? And it just got worse than Batman and Robin.
But if you think about it, Batman Forever might have been the modern version of the show. Because you remember how brightly colored that became.
I think Batman and Robin is more. Because it was more geared, they even said it was basically like a big toy commercial.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted. Jeff and I were talking about an episode at some point where how Tim Burton got fired from doing Batman 3. And a lot of it had to do with how dark Batman Returns was, and McDonald's was not happy because it was not what they expected. They expected something more kid-friendly, family-friendly, and Tim Burton made a Batman movie and a version of Batman that was a Tim Burton movie at that. And so they said they wanted more family-friendly, and I even heard Michael Keaton say, like, Joel Schumacher was doing interviews with him, and he said, I don't understand why everything's so dark. And Michael Keaton was like, dude, do you not know this character? And then that's kind of what, because I've even heard, believe it or not, it's on a wrestling podcast called 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff and Conrad Thompson. And Eric Bischoff worked in WCW. He's like one of the main creator guys that really put WCW on the map. And he said, you people have the power. We're making products for you, but at the same time, if you got advertisers and marketing and they pull out, then you're kind of pushed off to the side because they're really where majority of the income's coming from. So if an advisor says, guess what? And that's kind of what happened and why they went the route they did with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
That sucks.
It does. That's Hollywood, though. I mean, if it was independent, it probably would have been, Tim Burton Batman 3.
I would still love to see the Tim Burton Batman 3.
Me too.
I mean, even now, I'd love to see older Batman.
Mm-hmm. I'd love it if they did like a animated thing, like what they did with Batman TV series. Because I was so happy when they did that. I thought it was excellent. I was like, good, we get a little more. Like I said, we got that break. They came back. We had a comic book. Now they did an animated movie. We got 2. And they're both really good. I mean, you got a new villain in Batman vs. Two-Face, and then you even got Harley Quinn introduced in Batman vs. Two-Face, which I was like, is that who I think it is?
I mean, even with the Return
and Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Hugo Strange, not the Marvel Doctor Strange.
I was like, even in Return of the Cape Crusader, it was a little bit of the same, but it was also different. And, like, yes, it had brought back all the original villains, but yet you also kept the story new and fresh. And, yes, it did have the camp of what it needed. Yeah. I think that's what it is. The show itself, the camp itself is what keeps it going.
And I didn't notice the camp as a kid. No. I just thought it was cool. Batman got out of these bad situations. He was a good role model. There was actual detective work in the shows, too. That's another element of, like, close to Batman being Batman that I thought was really cool in it. It was even an educational show. It taught you stuff, and I always love learning because I mean I'll still never learn everything, no matter how much I learn throughout my life. Or sadly, I'll learn something that's too late in my life and be like, oh shit, I'll be on my hospital bed and be like dying, going, now I get it.
Now I understand.
And then I'll be dead. But it was cool to see stuff like that in a fun and educational way, and I really enjoyed that as well. And also, I love how it's become this, even though it's not horror related, it's become a thing for Halloween, like horror conventions. Like Adam West and Burt Ward were going to horror conventions. We saw Lee Merriweather at a horror convention.
Yeah.
Yvonne Craig was at a horror convention before she passed. They were selling the bootleg shows there. At one point.
That was the only way to get them, too.
Exactly. And I think it's also because in that 60s time frame when you had some of the horror hosts and the like the Munsters and the Addams Family, they get, for some reason that show gets kind of lumped in with that. I don't know if it's a sci-fi thing or if it's just it being, or maybe the villains have something to do with it. I don't know, but I think it's really cool how in the Halloween season and in the horror community, that show is a little more embraced, and it kind of continues on, like even at conventions and stuff. Because you don't really think of that right away, but it's not just one vendor, it's multiple vendors now, and I think that's really, really cool.
Now, do you have a favorite episode?
Yeah, actually I do. It's the one where Joker has the utility belt. I think it was Joker's awesome. First episode, yeah.
Isn't it the anti-utility belt or something like that?
I don't know what you call it exactly, but I just know that like he had the Joker face on it, and he said, I'm going to have my own utility belt, which was inspired by a comic book story. That's like probably my favorite Joker one, and again, there was like a very subtle, super badass moment that Adam West had. Like I think that fight scene that he has with Joker was really cool, like how he's just talking smack to him, and then all of a sudden he just like punches him in the face. And then even Cesar Romero, it wasn't too over the top campy and too over the top humorous. There actually was like a bit of seriousness to it that I liked.
Yeah.
And another memorable one I'll always remember because my dad had one of those old Viewmasters where you see the slides going through.
Yeah.
Is Catwoman's first episode with the golden cats. I was like, I'd probably say those two are probably two of my favorites.
Mine's actually going to be the college episode with Catwoman. because that one always sticks out to me.
Can't blame you for that one.
And then,
Usually when she's bent over or that couch.
dude, the puns. That's all I'm just saying. The puns. That's what got me.
I also remember in that episode how she tries to escape. And like I said, man, Adam West and Julie just had chemistry like no other. I mean, in anything that I've seen, they had some of the best fucking chemistry. It's like he wanted her so much to be a good person. But like when she escapes in the Cadillac, he just quick runs over and grabs her and he says, "No. And you know I can't let you go." Basically, I was like, oh, dude, it's like, oh. And then, like the times where you think she dies and how he gets so upset. And it was like, you feel for him, man. It's like, dude, he really genuinely, it's like, he never said that, like, he loved anybody on the show, but you felt like he loved Catwoman.
Absolutely. And that episode definitely showed it.
I probably have to say, like, some villains have good episodes, bad episodes, but every Julie Newmar Catwoman episode, I think I can just watch over and over again just because of how good she was and how her and Adam West were just, oh man. That alone right there just makes me want to rewatch that stuff because it was just spot on.
Yeah. And then my second one would probably be the introduction of Mr. Freeze.
No shit, the first one.
Yeah. Because I like the fact that they were trying to think in reality on what he would actually be like, where he was using fire extinguishers as his freezing mechanism. Like, I'm always a big Mr. Freeze fan because, like, he's more a villain of circumstance rather than most of the other villains, which are, villains.
Right.
And in this one, you're getting to see him actually be a villain.
I think a beaker of cooling freeze or something fell on him and it mutated him.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It's not as good as what the animated series gave us, but yeah.
I felt like that one was ahead of its time on a lot of stuff with just that character. And watch them try to keep him cold and trap Batman and Robin. It always stuck out to me.
If you watch a lot of the episodes in the first season when they were just starting, maybe not even like halfway through the season, they really weren't quite so campy, I noticed. And then it wasn't until definitely the second season, the camp was just so in your face.
Yeah, I can agree with that one.
Especially the villains. That's where it really just... Oh.
Isn't that where we got Shame and everything?
Yeah, I think so. It was before they just had source material. But you had that one other character, Zelda the Great, the magician.
Yeah.
And she was really cool. And she was, like, again, one of those villains of circumstance where it wasn't really her, but she was the talent and then that could commit the crimes, and then her manager or whatever was the brains behind it. And oh, man, that was some pretty wild stuff in there, too. But, I mean, all those actors were just really great on that show. And you could tell they all had a fun time doing it. I'm so happy to hear Adam West, like, really coveted that part and was a good role model and kept his nose clean in the public eye and actually, like, lived, like, being Batman for kids.
And that's awesome, though. Like,
that's really fucking cool.
He wanted to be that role model.
I'll always appreciate that from him. I remember I wanted to talk to him longer because even like when the show came back in high school, and remember when I was introducing you to it, I often thought like I want to write him a letter and just say like how much he meant to me, just as not just as Batman, but what he did for that character and how well written it was, and it inspired me to become an honor roll student in some ways and like be like good and do good and recognize morals, and even if you're not good at a certain talent or subject or something, it was okay because as long as you have an idea, you can still figure something out or go to a source that'll help you, because it's like he couldn't figure everything out on his own. Even though he's the world's greatest detective, he still would go try to figure stuff out. And I was like, this is something that was very well needed. And I just remembered this, that one thing that he really took to heart as well was some kids came up to him and said, I didn't have a dad growing up, whether he passed away or he ran away from home or something. But kids would say, you were the closest thing to a father I ever had.
Wow.
Now imagine how that made him feel.
Dude, that's actually amazing.
That's got to hit the heart. If that doesn't hit the heart, I don't know what does. Holy shit. So, I mean, despite what other people might say on the outside of Batman the TV series, there's no denying that there was a lot of heart into it, and there was an impact like no other that we're going to get from it. And it's going to be Batman lore from now on. And I know there's a movie, but I still don't really count it as a Batman movie because it was an extension of the TV series, really.
Yeah.
I know some people argue with me about that, and I'm like, hey, if you want to say it's a Batman movie, go ahead, because, yeah, it is a Batman movie, but I said what I said. So do you have anything else to add to Batman the TV series, Jeff?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, then I guess with that being said, we shall sign off. This is Colin Peters.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening. Stay safe. Stay crazy. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.